There was one demonstration in Berlin at the same time, and clearly it was strategic. And it was a demonstration that involved about 50, people in Nazi regalia, who, and this was 5 miles from the regular demonstration, from the demonstration I participated in, and they raided the Reichstag, which is, of course, the German parliament building, and it's famous in history because Hitler burned the Reichstag and blamed it on the Jews, and that was one of the ways that the Nazi party came to power in Germany in 1932, 1933, and so it's a symbolic edifice for Nazis. But we have films of that demonstration, and it's clear that the police were cooperating with with these right-wing groups, and that they staged this kind of false flag event at the Reichstag for the press. The press, instead of covering our demonstration with the biggest crowds in German history, went and published this and covered this this kabuki play in front of the Reichstag, and then wrote that then they conflated the two events and said that the people who participated in our event were Nazis. There were no Nazis there. But that's, of course, one of the ways that they try to discredit us. So it was, but it was really, it was an inspiring event because there was so much love there. There was so much awokenness of people who understand that this, that crises throughout history are become opportunities of convenience for authoritarian elements in a society. And whether it's 9/11, anytime that you see a crisis, if these authoritarian and totalitarian elements within a society can use that crisis to drum up fear, whether it's fear of terrorism, fear of Jews, fear of Bolsheviks, fear of foreigners, fear of brown people or white people or black people, they'll do that. And fear is the best mechanism for authoritarian rule. And they use it to shift amounts of wealth from the middle class to the very, very rich, and then clamp down authoritarian control and mechanisms of surveillance in order to protect that or to safeguard that, that dynamic of shifting wealth away from and rights away from the public. When Hermann Goering was at Nuremberg, he was asked by one of the prosecutors, how did the Nazis get the German people to go along with all these, giving up their rights, giving up the right to participate in the political process? The Nazis came in and they abolished all the political parties. So the only way that you could get into the Reichstag and participate in government was if you were a Nazi. Germany at that time was the most highly educated people probably in the history of the planet, and certainly in Europe of that era. They were the most democratic country. The Weimar Republic was the democratic ideal. They were a tolerant nation. The reason there were so many Jews in Germany was because they had fled the pogroms in Eastern Europe and the Inquisition in Spain and come to Germany and felt that they were part of that nation and that their rights would be respected. So you had this nation. A lot of people after World War II, believe that, well, that could have only happened because those people were Germans and there's something wrong with the Germans. My father used to always say, it's not the Germans. That can happen to any of us. And that's why we need to keep our democratic institutions solid. It has nothing to do with them being German. It has to do with them being a human. And Goering said the same thing. And the prosecutor said, how did you Nazis persuade all the people to give up their rights and to follow one leader and do what they're told and go into all these wars? He said, it's a simple thing. And he said, it doesn't matter if it's a totalitarian government or a right-wing government or Nazi government, fascist, Bolshevik, socialist, communist, or in a democracy. The leaders can always do this. This is what he said, that all they need is fear. If you can get the public scared, you can get them to do anything that you want. And so authoritarian elements in society are always trying to think of ways to frighten the public, to justify doing what they want, which is to obliterate the middle class, shift the wealth to the very, very rich, and then clamp down, create a national security state and police powers and surveillance in order to crush dissent. And, I saw today that some of the on CNN, there was a description of how much money the big technology barons are making now. Since the COVID have started, people like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Bloomberg, Carlos Slim, and the people who run Google and all of them their billions are multiplying. They're making, Gates is making $1 billion a week on the quarantine. And the really obvious thing that I think people need to take notice of is that the oligarchs like Zuckerberg and Gates, who are censoring criticism of the quarantine, are the same oligarchs who are making billions from the quarantine. And they're control of communication. And they're the ones who are creating all these mechanisms for surveilling and for controlling populations when we complain about all the money that they're taking away from us and giving them to themselves. And the people who were at this demonstration were enlightened, and they saw what was happening. And that's what we have to, our job. And of course, the press circled around and said, no, these were a bunch of Nazis who are horrible people. And, what is Robert Kennedy doing with Nazis and anti-Semites? And of course, that's what they're going to say, because they don't want people to hear the truth. And the truth is that these oligarchs who are getting fat on the ruined bones of the middle class that they have obliterated and decimated are the same ones that own the press organs that are censoring criticisms of what's happening right now.